going to the place and sit down with a couple of guys and have a couple of beers. There'd always be some guy that would come over and say, come on, let's go. The table's right over there. We can just, I said, no, I really don't play.
These days, your night in Cleveland in a few moments. But right now, Paul Newman is waiting in the wings. So why don't we bring him out? The 80-year-old actor is one of America's most admired and respected performers, though he'd never be mistaken for a conventional film star. He lives far from Hollywood in Connecticut with his wife of nearly 50 years, actress Joanne Woodward. And for decades, he's devoted a good portion of his time to pursuits beyond the screen. His commitment to philanthropy is well known. His Newman's Own food and drink products devote all their profits to charity, one of which is his hole-in-the-wall camps for sick children. And then there's his love of auto racing. Speed and engines began piquing Newman's interest over 3 decades ago. And since then, he's become immersed in the world of champ car racing. A few weeks ago, we had the chance to join the blue-eyed legend at the racetrack in Montreal.
If you had one glorious public moment left, would you rather have it be on screen or on the racetrack?
You shouldn't have started off this way. God, I'm going to stutter, and I would have to have that choice made for me.
Although both are possible, these days Paul Newman is choosing to spend more of his time at the racetrack. Auto racing is much more than a hobby to Newman. He and his partner Carl Haas have owned the Newman Haas racing team for 22 years. Newman is no absentee owner. Competing in the Champ Car World Series, he's on site for nearly all of his team's races. Recently, we visited with Newman in Montreal.
He just turned in a quick lap.
The 10th event of the Champ Car season.
What does it feel like when a race is about to begin? The atmosphere of it. What's going on inside you?
Well, you're trying to figure whether your heart is going to come out through your mouth or somewhere else. I don't know. It's like no other excitement that I've had.
Newman Haas Racing has been one of the most successful teams in the sport, winning 5 championships to date. But he's not only an owner. He's been competing behind the wheel for over 30 years. It started when Newman, in his early 40s, played the role of a race car driver in the 1969 film Winning.
You all right? Okay. Get me back over.
Before you made Winning, did you have any interest, really, in auto racing?
Didn't know anything about it.
That's when it started.
Yeah.
It was around that time that Newman was introduced to legendary driver Mario Andretti at a race in New York. Andretti, 27 at the time, decided to take the movie star for a spin around the track.
I thought I sort of scared him a little bit, and and I think he was kind of gripping whatever he could hang on to pretty good, and I think that fascinated him.
3 years after winning, Newman began racing competitively, capturing his first victory in 1972. Among the highlights of his racing career was this.
What a great moment this must be for Paul Newman.
A victory in the Rolex 24 Daytona Endurance Race in 1995.
And here comes Paul Newman. At age 70, by 9 years, he has now become the oldest man ever to win the Rolex 24. Look at the crew.
10 years later, at 80, he's still at it.
Why do you keep doing this at such an advanced age?
Well, because it's a kick in the rear, for one thing. It clears your head out. And I will continue to do it, I guess, until I embarrass myself.
Andretti, a close friend of Newman's for over 3 decades, says his buddy is far from giving up racing.
I was just talking the other day, and he says, you know, the Petit Le Mans race is coming up in October. He says, maybe we should team up in that race. You know, it's a 10-hour race. And he wasn't kidding. I think I'm too old for that.
I read a quote of yours that surprised me. You said the only place where you've really felt physical grace is in the race car.
You should have seen me ski. It was really a mess. Or you should check my wife's feet from dancing. They're just wretched because they've been stomped on so much. So I did feel graceful in the car, yeah.
So you don't consider yourself to have been a good athlete?
No.
People would be surprised by that, because even in non-sports movies, there was always, to the viewer, a sense of athleticism in the roles you played and physical grace and ease in the roles you played. Were you fooling us?
That's why I'm an actor. That's what they call acting.
What they have called Newman is one of the finest actors of his generation. He's been making movies for over 50 years, and he's been nominated for 9 Oscars, winning in 1986 for The Color of Money. Many of his characters have become screen icons, from Hud to Cool Hand Luke to Butch Cassidy. Newman isn't big on reminiscing about his films, but we got him to talk about a few that had sports as their theme.
When you look back at some of the films you've made that have sports at the heart of them, Somebody Up There Likes Me as Rocky Graziano, Slapshot, where you played the aging player coach Reg Dunlop, or The Hustler, and later The Color of Money, where you're Fast Eddie Felson. Do those look okay to you?
I could have been a better boxer, I suppose, and Somebody Up There Likes Me. God, the last 4 or 5 days, I was in the ring, I think, for 12 hours a day. We did all of the boxing sequences at the end of the picture. So I think I got pretty tired toward the end.
Have you had it?
What are you talking about? He ain't got me. I got him. He's wide open now. I'm gonna go out this route. I'm gonna bust his head open.
When you played Graziano, you're in the ring with Tony Zale, who had been the middleweight champion of the world. He played himself. He had legendary fights with Graziano. Did Zale give you an evaluation of how authentic you were?
Tony couldn't box for the camera. You'd have a guy from the ring, he says, okay, Zale, left hook, and boy, so I'd lie down on the canvas, collect my head and say, so it just wasn't working out. He didn't know how to pull a punch. And
So he tagged you a few times.
oh, man. And so we got a marvelous bartender who was a great stunt man, and he looked a lot like Tony, so that's what we did with that.
Well, drink it all in one at last, honey. I'm gonna be losing this title someday.
Somebody Up There Likes Me was made in 1955. Newman was not the first choice to play middleweight champ Graziano.
James Dean was supposed to be Graziano.
Yes. I turned Somebody Up There Likes Me down the first time it was offered to me because Jimmy had just been killed, and I felt uneasy about taking advantage of that situation. But ultimately, as they pointed out, well, someone's going to play it, and the movie's going to get made.
Good thing you took it, too, because, as I understand, it's the second film you ever made. And the first one was The Silver Chalice, which
was the worst film made during the entire 1950s. There was not one film in 10 years that was worse than that one, especially with my legs in a short Greek cocktail skirt. Didn't work.
Going to give me my freedom? This is your last chance, I warn you. Are you going to give me my freedom? Answer me. Freedom, freedom, now! Are you waiting?
And so when, years later, they were going to show it on TV in Los Angeles, you took out an ad in the paper encouraging people not to watch.
And they did. That's the unfortunate thing. I took out an ad in the Los Angeles Times. I think it was a quarter of a page. It said, Paul Newman will be apologizing every night this week. And so everybody watched it every night. It backfired.
One movie Newman didn't have to apologize for was Slapshot, the story of a minor league hockey team in the 60s and 70s. It remains a cult favorite with sports fans, but Newman says the film almost didn't get made.
George Ray Hill, who had directed The Sting, and Butch Cassidy sent me the script.
Are you crazy? Those guys are retards.
The scout said they showed a lot of promise.
They brought their fucking toys with them.
I'd rather have them playing with their toys than playing with themselves.
They're too dumb to play with themselves.
I read it on a Wednesday. I called him on Thursday, and I said, it's foul-mouthed, but boy, it's real and beautiful, and let's do it.
The problem was Hill discovered he had budget issues and figured Newman would be too expensive. Hill put Slapshot on hold and then disappeared. But Newman wasn't giving up. He tracked Hill down in Palm Springs at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Walked into the office, and I said, where's George Roy Hill? And he said, we can't tell you. I grabbed him and pulled him across the counter. I said, you better tell me where he is because I'm going to find him anyway. I saw him. We sat down at a curbstone at 6 o'clock in the morning with a six-pack of beer and wrote the contract.
Newman's most critically acclaimed sports movie was The Hustler. His portrayal of pool shark Fast Eddie Felson got him an Oscar nomination and was so authentic, it followed him off the screen.
Every time after The Hustler that you'd go any place and sit down with a couple of guys and have a couple of beers, there'd always be some guy that would come over and say, come on, let's go. The table's right over there. We can just, I said, no, I really don't play. They said, no, come on, buddy. What's the big deal? Come on over and play. So I said, no, I don't. He says, come on. What would it take? What would you like to bet? I said, how about your house?
Anybody ever take you up on that?
Never.
I guess it's just you and me, huh? You know what, kid? I think maybe you're a hustler. Try me. Shoot.
There's a line in The Hustler. You say, anything can be great. Bricklaying can be great. When a guy really knows what he's doing, when you're right and you know you're right, and the cue is part of you, that's a tremendous feeling. Is that part of the allure of sports, you think, in general?
Well, it's the part of excellence. I mean, excellence. And I don't care where you see it, whether it's in a restaurant with a waiter or a guy directing traffic and he really knows what he's doing. I could watch him for an hour. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing that I look for is excellence in anything.
While still making the occasional film, Newman remains totally immersed in car racing. In 2003, he was nominated for an Oscar for his role in The Road to Perdition, but skipped the awards to watch his driving team.
What is it about racing that fills some sort of personal void that acting or other pursuits couldn't get to?
Well, I'm a very competitive person, and always have been. And it's impossible to be competitive as an actor. How can you tell who started out with what? How can you tell what you contributed, what the contribution of the director was, what the contribution of the writer was? I mean, how can you tell who wins? But a car? Yeah.
On this day in Montreal, Newman Haas driver Sébastien Bourdais, the current points leader, is dominating the race. He leads every lap until he makes a pit stop 20 laps from the finish line. There, a crew member makes a mistake changing the left rear tire, costing Bourdais crucial seconds.
What has happened to Sébastien Bourdais' team? They are normally flawless on pit road.
The foul-up ends Bourdais' chance for a victory. However, Newman Haas's other driver, Oriol Servia, comes from behind to win in dramatic fashion.
And Oriol Servia will win!
So, shifting fortunes here. Your guy has a 5-second lead, a botched pit stop, and Oriol winds up winning it.
Yeah, first win.
His first win.
I feel great for Servia. I feel bad for Sébastien, who didn't do anything wrong. So. But that's what racing's all about. Damn. Well.
Off to the post-race rituals. First stop, congratulating his team.
Great going, great going.
Then, it's on to the winner's circle.
Sir, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you guys, for sure. So, I'm really happy.
There we are.
Yes! CCC!
Next up for Newman is his team's race in Las Vegas later this month. And he'll be in Mexico in November for the last race of the Champ Car season, hoping to claim another championship.
Congratulations.
At 80, Newman isn't sure about getting one last great movie role. But with family, racing, and his other great passion, helping kids with life-threatening illnesses through his charity work, he says his life is as full as ever.
Listen, I'm lucky. I've had the excitement of curtains coming up on Broadway and grandchildren and automobile racing and watching sick kids bring back part of their childhood. I mean, I've been a very, very fortunate person to have all of those experiences to fall back on. And a lady that I've been with for 50 years, my goodness, what could be better?
And fittingly, Newman's next film role involves racing. He's voicing one of the lead parts in next summer's animated Pixar film, Cars. And recently, his frequent co-star Robert Redford said that he and Newman have been kicking around ideas for a new movie project.